The message came unexpectedly. It was a single, cryptic transmission, one that echoed through his device late one evening when the world outside seemed quiet. At first, the protagonist thought it was a mistake. He had almost forgotten the message he received many years ago. He had no reason to expect it to come back, but here it was, a signal from someone he never thought he would hear from again. He stared at the screen in disbelief, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and confusion. The sender was identified, only as Zara, but the name alone triggered a flood of memories. Zara, an alien woman he had met during a brief and extraordinary encounter on a mission to space. They had shared moments unlike any other he'd experienced, but those days had ended so abruptly. She had left Earth, and with her departure, she took not only a part of him but also a piece of his heart. He remembered the necklace, the one he had given her, a simple yet special gift, an ancient pendant that symbolized his feelings, something tangible that could bridge the vast gap between their worlds. When she left, she took it with her, and he thought he would never see either of them again. The message was clear. I am coming back to Earth. I have kept the necklace. We need to talk. The room around him seemed to stand still. His hands trembled as he reached for the old piece of jewelry that lay on his desk. The necklace, still untouched, seemed to carry the weight of his emotions. He didn't know why, but it felt like a sign, a call from the past. He glanced at the timestamp on the message. It was set to arrive in 2 days. That was all the information he had. There was no clue about why she was coming back or how long she planned to stay. But one thing was for certain, she had not forgotten him. He tried to remember the last time he saw Zara. The day she had left was clouded in sorrow. They had shared a brief but intense bond, one filled with conversations about their worlds, their differences and their dreams. But the universe was vast and their paths were destined to diverge. And then, one day, she was gone, leaving behind only the memory of her radiant presence. Why now? He muttered to himself, his voice quiet in the stillness of his apartment. He wasn't sure what to expect. Perhaps it was some form of closure, or maybe a chance to reconnect with the one person who had stirred feelings within him he never thought possible. He had moved on with his life, but now that old spark was rekindled, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. The hours leading up to her return felt like an eternity. He spent the time preparing, wondering what she would look like, what she would say, and how he would react. Would she be the same Zara? Or would the years apart have changed her? Would she still remember him? Or would their bond feel as distant as it had been when she first left? The day of her arrival finally came. The world seemed unusually quiet, and he found himself pacing around his small apartment, unable to sit still. His mind raced with questions, but there was nothing he could do except wait. He knew that she was out there, somewhere, ready to step foot on Earth again. As the hour drew closer, he prepared himself for whatever was to come. He felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear. What if it was all a mistake? What if she had moved on, and he had only held on to a memory that was no longer important to her? He had no way of knowing what to expect. Then the doorbell rang. His heart skipped a beat, and he froze. It was her. He opened the door slowly, his breath caught in his chest. And there she was. Zara stood in front of him, looking just as he remembered, but also entirely different. She had not aged, not a single mark of time on her face. But the world around her had. The years had changed both of them in ways he couldn't quite grasp. She was still strikingly beautiful, but there was something about her presence now that felt more grounded, more purposeful. And then, he noticed the necklace. It hung around her neck, the very one he had given her years ago. The sight of it sent a rush of emotions through him. She hadn't just kept it. She had worn it all this time, carrying it with her across galaxies. "Hello?" Zara said softly, her voice familiar but tinged with something he couldn't place. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." For a moment, neither of them spoke. There was so much to say, yet neither knew where to start. They stood there just looking at each other, the weight of the years pressing on them both. "Zara," he finally managed, his voice a mix of shock and wonder. You're really here." She nodded, her expression unreadable. "I never forgot you," she said quietly, her fingers lightly brushing the necklace. "And I never took this off." Her words settled in the space between them, hanging like a promise, a reminder of the past and perhaps a chance at something new. The silence that followed was comfortable but filled with so many unanswered questions. "What brings you back?" he asked, unable to contain his curiosity. Zara looked at him, her gaze intense as though searching for the right words. "I've come to ask for your help," she said at last. The words were simple, yet they carried so much weight. It was a beginning, but the path ahead was uncertain. As they stood there, the necklace glinting in the soft light of the room, he realized that this wasn't just the return of an alien from another world. It was the return of something that had once been so important to him, something he had let go of long ago but never truly forgot. And now, as their paths crossed once more, he had no idea where this journey would lead. The silence between them grew heavier, but the protagonist couldn't take his eyes off the necklace Zara wore. He had given it to her during their brief time together, a symbol of their connection, something simple, but deeply meaningful. The pendant was an ancient design, a gift from Earth, one that had come to represent more than just a material object. It had carried the weight of unspoken feelings, of a bond formed in a short but intense period. It felt as though it had always belonged to her. Zara's gaze flickered to the necklace too, her fingers grazing it softly as though she was lost in her own thoughts. The air felt thick with unspoken words, but neither seemed to know where to begin. She had returned after so many years. But why? And what did it mean for them after all this time? "I never thought I'd see you again," the protagonist finally said, his voice quieter than he intended. He had tried to move on with his life, but even after all these years, seeing her again stirred emotions he thought had been buried. Zara's eyes softened as she looked at him, her expression difficult to read. "I didn't know what to expect either, but I knew I couldn't just leave without seeing you once more, without explaining." The protagonist leaned against the doorframe, his mind racing. The memories of their time together flooded back. He remembered her sharp, intelligent eyes, her soft voice that had offered comfort in the strange world of space. Their conversations had been deep, full of wonder about each other's worlds. It hadn't been love, not exactly, but it had been something special, something that had felt like it could grow, if only the universe had given them more time. "We didn't have much time," he said, almost to himself. "But the time we had, it meant something." Zara nodded slowly, her gaze steady. "It meant something to me too." She paused, looking down at the pendant once more. "I've kept this all these years. I thought about you. Often. I wanted to understand what that connection was, what it could mean." The protagonist swallowed. "But why now, after all this time? What brought you back?" Zara seemed to hesitate, her eyes distant as if she were weighing something heavy. Finally, she met his gaze again. "There is something happening in my world, something I cannot explain. Easily, I came back because I need your help, but more than that, I need you to understand." He stepped forward, his curiosity outweighing the confusion. "Understand what?" Zara took a deep breath before answering. "My people are in danger. The necklace, it's not just a symbol of our bond, it's more than that. It's a key, a power source that can help save my planet from destruction." The words hit him hard. The idea of something as simple as a necklace holding the fate of an entire alien world seemed impossible. But looking at Zara, at her seriousness, her urgency, he knew she wasn't lying. Whatever was happening in her world, it was serious. "Why me?" he asked. "Why come back to me? Why not someone who understands your technology better?" Zara looked at him with a glint of something he couldn't quite place. "Because you understand me. You understand Earth. You understand how to navigate the things between us. And because this necklace, This bond we shared, it connects us in ways that I cannot explain. We're linked. My world is dying, and I believe that somehow your connection to this is the only way to save it." The protagonist felt a mix of shock and confusion. This was beyond anything he had ever imagined. His mind swirled with questions, but one thing stood out clearly. Zara had come back, not just to see him again, but because something was wrong, and he was a part of the answer. "How can a necklace help save your people?" he asked, almost incredulously. Zara's eyes softened as she reached up to touch the pendant again. "It's not just a necklace. It's a relic from my ancestors passed down through generations. It holds the key to our survival, but only if it's used correctly. The power of our ancestors can still be harnessed, but I need help to unlock it, and I need to do it with someone who holds a part of it, someone who can understand the significance of this bond." The protagonist's head spun with the idea of an ancient relic holding so much power, of an alien civilization relying on him, on Earth, for help. He couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her, toward the connection they had once shared, but this was something else entirely. This was bigger than both of them. "You still haven't told me what's happening to your people," he said, his voice firm now. "Why is your world at risk?" Zara's expression darkened as she looked away, her brow furrowed in concern. "There is a war coming, a war that threatens everything. My people, we've been in conflict for years, but now it's escalating. There are forces within my species who seek to destroy everything we've worked for. The necklace was meant to be a safeguard, but we have lost control of its power." The protagonist felt a chill run down his spine. The stakes were high. "And you think the key to stopping it is the necklace, and that I'm somehow part of that?" "I do," she said with quiet conviction. "Without your help, my people will fall, and Earth may be caught in the middle of it all." He took a deep breath, processing everything she had said. The gravity of the situation was starting to sink in. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a chance to change the fate of two worlds, to protect something bigger than himself. He looked back at her, his heart racing. "What do we need to do?" Zara's eyes lit up with hope, and for the first time since her arrival, she smiled. "We start by unlocking the power within the necklace, together." The moment Zara had mentioned the war, everything else seemed to fall away. The city outside his apartment felt distant, as if it no longer mattered. It was hard to grasp. His mind was still trying to catch up with everything she had said. An ancient relic, a dying civilization, a war. None of this had ever been part of his life. And now, here she was standing in front of him, the same alien woman he had once shared a quiet connection with, but this time with the weight of a galaxy on her shoulders. Zara's gaze softened as she took in the apartment, her eyes scanning the room before settling back on him. "I never thought I would be back here, in your world. The last time I was on Earth, it felt like a dream. Now..." She trailed off, her voice laced with uncertainty. He noticed the way she held herself. There was a tension in her posture, as if the burden of her mission was too much to bear alone. And yet, she had returned, asking for his help. "I'm not the same person I was when I left," she said, breaking the silence. Her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "The years have changed me, just as they've changed you." He nodded slowly, understanding what she meant. Time had passed, and with it, a sense of normalcy had returned to his life. He had moved on, had become part of Earth again, not the part-time astronaut or explorer he once was. And yet there was something about Zara's presence that felt unchanged, as though no time had passed at all. It was as if she was still the same being he had met all those years ago, filled with the same intensity, the same quiet power. I've built a life here," he said, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken years. "I have my job, my friends. Things are simpler now. But you've come back to drag me into something far beyond anything I've ever known." Zara stepped closer, her eyes never leaving his. "I don't want to drag you into anything. she said softly. But I need you. Earth has something my people need, something that only a human can help us unlock. Her words lingered in the air, and the truth of them settled into his mind like a stone in his stomach. The necklace had been a connection. Between them, something small and personal that seemed so trivial when compared to the galaxy-spanning conflict she now spoke of. Yet it was tied to everything. The necklace wasn't just a gift anymore. It was the key to unlocking power, to saving her world. I don't know what to say, he admitted, his voice tense. This is all so much to process. I don't even know where to start. Zara took a deep breath as though steeling herself for something more difficult. I understand. It's not easy, but if we don't act soon, my world will be destroyed. The necklace, it's not just a symbol of our bond, it's part of an ancient device that when activated can change the course of the war, but I cannot do it alone. He looked at her, his thoughts spinning. He had once admired her strength, her determination, but now he saw something deeper. Desperation. Zara was not the same confident alien woman who had left Earth. She was a warrior, worn down by the weight of her people's struggles. And she was asking him of all people to help her. The protagonist exhaled slowly. All right, tell me what I need to do. Zara's eyes brightened with a spark of hope. We need to go to the place where my people first found the necklace. It's located on an ancient planet, one that no longer exists on modern maps. It's hidden deep within the heart of a forgotten galaxy. He couldn't believe what she was saying. An ancient, forgotten planet, a lost galaxy. It sounded like something out of a science fiction novel, not something that could possibly be real. But looking at Zara, he saw the sincerity in her eyes. She wasn't lying. Whatever this place was, it was important to her people, and to their future. You want me to go to this planet? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why me? Because of the necklace, Zara replied. It's connected to you in ways you don't fully understand. Only you can unlock the power it holds. It's been with you for so long, and it must be activated in the right place at the right time. We'll need to get there before others do. The urgency in her voice was unmistakable. The protagonist had no idea what was coming, but he could see the fear in Zara's eyes. He had no choice but to trust her. He swallowed hard. When do we leave? Zara's lips curled into a small but relieved smile. We leave as soon as possible. Time is running out, and my enemies will be looking for us. He nodded, suddenly feeling the weight of what lay ahead. There was no going back now. Earth, his life, and his past with Zara had all led him to this point. Whatever this journey held, it was something he couldn't ignore. The next steps were uncertain, but one thing was clear. The path ahead would change everything. As Zara turned and led him toward the door, the protagonist felt a rush of conflicting emotions. He didn't know what he was about to face, but he knew that he couldn't back down. Not for Earth, and certainly not for Zara. He had no idea if they would succeed in their mission or if he would ever return to his quiet life. But one thing was certain. This journey would define who he was, who they were, and perhaps even the fate of both their worlds. The journey had begun before either of them truly understood what was at stake. Zara and the protagonist stood at the edge of his world, looking out at the unknown, ready to face whatever awaited them in the vast reaches of space. There was no turning back now. They had a mission, and it was unlike anything the protagonist had ever imagined. The days leading up to their departure were filled with preparation. Zara had been busy, securing resources and gathering what little information she had about the ancient planet. The protagonist, on the other hand, spent most of his time in quiet reflection, trying to process everything that had been thrown at him. The necklace, his connection to Zara, and now this mission that could change the course of both their worlds. It was all overwhelming. Zara had explained as much as she could, but the deeper details remained hidden, shrouded in mystery. She spoke of the ancient device, the power it held, and the dangerous forces that were after it. However, she had never fully explained what the device actually did, or how the protagonist's involvement would help unlock its power. There were gaps in her story, and each one made him more curious. "Why are you still keeping secrets from me?" he asked one evening, sitting across from Zara in the small, quiet space they had rented. The journey to the hidden planet was still a few days away, but the uncertainty was gnawing at him. Zara looked at him, her face a mask of calm, but he could see the weariness in her eyes. "I haven't been truthful about everything," she admitted, her voice soft. "I wanted to protect you, but I realize now that you deserve to know the truth." She leaned forward, her fingers tracing the edge of the table between them. "The necklace is more than just a key. It holds the essence of my people's history, their power. It was created by the first of my kind, long before my people were scattered across the stars. The power of the device is what allowed us to survive when others sought to destroy us. But it has been hidden for millennia, and only a few of us know where it truly lies." The protagonist's mind was racing. "So, it's not just a piece of jewelry, it's a part of your people's survival?" Zara nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes. But the necklace isn't enough on its own. It must be placed in the heart of the ancient planet, at a specific site where the first of my people activated the device. Only then will its power be unlocked. Only then can it protect us from those who would see us destroyed." The protagonist listened carefully. His role in all of this was becoming clearer, but there was still so much left unsaid. "And my connection to the necklace? How does that fit in?" Zara hesitated before answering. "Your connection to the necklace is a bond, not just with me, but with the history of my people. The necklace was designed to connect two beings, someone from Earth and someone from my world. The two must be linked to activate the device. You and I are connected, though you fully understand it or not. That is why you must be the one to help me." The revelation hit him harder than he expected. He had always known there was something special about the necklace, but now it was becoming clear that it wasn't just a symbol of their bond. It was a tool, a vital part of a plan that spanned galaxies. Zara continued, "I don't know how or why it works, but I've spent years studying ancient texts. They all point to this. You and I were meant to come together at this moment. And now that you're here, the necklace must be placed in its rightful place, or the device will remain dormant and we will lose everything." He sat back, processing the weight of her words. He had come to this point because of his past connection with Zara, but now it felt like destiny. The necklace, the bond they shared, and the path they were about to take were all intertwined. He wasn't just helping her, he was part of something far bigger than himself. "So, what happens if we fail?" he asked, the question lingering in the air. Zara's expression grew serious. "If we fail, my people will fall, and Earth may be dragged into the conflict. The forces chasing us will destroy everything we've built. There is no room for error." The gravity of her words settled into his chest like a weight he couldn't shake off. He wasn't just fighting for an alien world, he was fighting for the future of two worlds. Earth, his home, and Zara's home, which had become a place of fear and destruction. Failure wasn't an option, but success seemed just as impossible. Then, "We'll succeed?" the protagonist said, his voice firm, even if doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. He had no choice but to believe that they could. Zara smiled, a small, reassuring gesture that lifted the weight on his shoulders, just a little. "Together, we will." The days passed quickly after that, and soon they were boarding the ship that would take them to the unknown planet. It was a quiet, sleek vessel, one that Zara had borrowed from an old ally. The journey would take several days, and during that time, they would have nothing but the vastness of space and the silence between them. But even in that silence, they both knew that what lay ahead would change everything. As the ship took off, the protagonist couldn't help but glance at Zara. She sat at the controls, her focus intense, but there was a hint of something in her expression, a vulnerability he hadn't seen before. She was not just a warrior, not just an alien trying to save her world. She was someone who had lost so much and was now asking for help, trusting him in a way that made him realize how deep their connection really went. They were no longer strangers, and the bond between them wasn't just about the past, it was about the future. And with that thought, the protagonist understood that whatever happened next, they would face it together. The journey through space felt surreal. The silence inside the ship was overwhelming, broken only by the soft hum of the engines as they cut through the vastness of the cosmos. Zara sat at the controls, her fingers moving with practiced ease over the buttons and levers. The protagonist sat across from her, staring out into the endless stars. There was a strange sense of calm within him, despite the storm of uncertainty and fear swirling in his mind. He couldn't help but feel the weight of their mission pressing on him. What he had once thought was just a necklace, a simple sentimental gift, was now revealed to be the key to saving an entire civilization. The gravity of their task was undeniable. This wasn't just about reconnecting with Zara, it was about the survival of her people, the balance of power between worlds, and the potential destruction of everything he knew. As they moved deeper into space, Zara spoke less and less. Her focus was entirely on the controls, her mind likely wrapped up in the mission ahead. The protagonist could sense the tension in her posture. The war would eventually end. But the truth is, we've waited too long. My enemies are closing in, and if we don't activate the device soon, we'll be wiped out. The weight of her words hung in the air. He understood now. This wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a tool of survival, a key to a weapon that could save or destroy entire worlds. And somehow, he was tied to it. He was the one who had to help her, the one who had to unlock the power that had been dormant for centuries. Why me, though? Why am I the one who can activate it? He asked again, the question still lingering in his mind. Zara hesitated, her fingers stilling on the ship's controls. For a moment, she looked as though she were searching for the right words. I don't know, she admitted. But the necklace chose you. It connected with you, and I believe that it was always meant to. Our worlds are linked in ways that we don't fully understand. The necklace was designed to connect two people, someone from Earth and someone from my world. Together we can unlock its power. And that's why we're here. The protagonist let the words sink in. The necklace wasn't just a symbol of their past. It was the key to their future. It had been waiting for this moment, for him to step into this role whether he was ready or not. As the ship drifted deeper into space, the stars outside became more distant, more unreachable. The vastness of the universe reminded him of just how small he really was, but at the same time he felt a strange sense of purpose. He was no longer just an observer in this world, he was an active participant. The decisions he made now could change everything. Are we close? He asked, breaking the silence. Very close, Zara replied, her voice steady. We'll be there within the hour. The tension between them was palpable as the ship entered the atmosphere of the ancient planet. The protagonist's heart raced. He could feel the weight of the necklace around his neck, the power it held, the responsibility it demanded. Zara guided the ship down toward the surface, her hands moving swiftly over the controls. The planet below them was shrouded in mist, an eerie silence hanging in the air. It looked like a place lost in time, a forgotten world that had been waiting for them to arrive. As they descended, the protagonist couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The planet seemed alive with energy, its surface alive with the echoes of history. And now, as they neared their destination, it was clear that whatever lay ahead would change the course of their lives forever. The ship touched down with a soft thud, and Zara immediately began preparing for the journey ahead. We need to find the temple, she said, standing up and moving toward the door. Once we enter, there's no turning back. The protagonist followed her, the necklace heavy against his chest. Whatever happened next, he knew they couldn't afford to fail. The air on the ancient planet was thick with the scent of damp earth and forgotten history. The protagonist followed Zara through the dense mist-covered forest, the path ahead barely visible through the fog. The ship had landed in a clearing, and they had trekked for miles to reach the entrance of the ancient temple that was said to hold the key to saving her world. The silence around them was deafening, as though the planet itself held its breath, waiting for them to uncover its secrets. Zara moved with a sense of purpose, her steps steady and sure. She had been quiet for the last few hours, lost in her thoughts. The tension between them was palpable, a shared understanding that what they were about to do could either save or destroy everything. The protagonist, too, was filled with a sense of unease. He had always been a man of action, but now he was facing something far greater than anything he could have imagined. The fate of Zara's people, and perhaps his own, rested on their ability to unlock the power of the necklace. They reached the entrance of the temple just as the sun began to set, casting an eerie golden glow over the stone structure. The temple looked ancient, its walls covered in moss and ivy. There were carvings all around the entrance, symbols that the protagonist couldn't understand. Zara stepped forward, her eyes scanning the markings, her fingers brushing over them gently. "This is it," Zara said quietly. "This is where it all began." The protagonist nodded, feeling a mix of awe and fear. He had never seen anything like this before. The temple seemed to pulse with energy, as if it were alive, waiting for something, or someone, to activate it. But he knew that this was no ordinary structure. It was a relic of a lost civilization, a place of immense power. And now, it was their turn to uncover its secrets. Zara turned to him, her expression serious. "Once we enter, there's no turning back. The necklace must be placed at the center of the temple. It's the only way to activate the device. But there are risks. I've told you about the enemies who are after us, but there's something else you need to know." The protagonist looked at her, sensing the gravity in her words. "What do you mean?" Zara hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her next words carefully. "The power within the necklace isn't just a tool. It's a force that can shape the future, but it can also destroy everything if it's misused. The device was meant to be a safeguard, but if it falls into the wrong hands, it will tear apart entire civilizations. We have to be careful. We have to do this right." The weight of her words sank in. The necklace wasn't just a key to saving her people. It was a weapon, a powerful tool that could be used for unimaginable destruction if mishandled. The protagonist felt a chill run down his spine. He had come this far, but now he realized the true danger they were facing. "We can't fail," he said, his voice steady. "We won't." Zara nodded, her eyes meeting his. "I believe in you," she said softly. "I believe in us." Together, they entered the temple. The air inside was cool, the stone walls cold to the touch. The temple was vast, with high ceilings that seemed to stretch endlessly upward. Ancient torches lined the walls, casting flickering shadows across the floor. The path ahead was narrow, and the further they went, the more the feeling of unease grew. It was as if the temple was alive, watching them, waiting for them to fulfill their purpose. At the center of the temple stood an altar, and on it, a pedestal. The pendant around the protagonist's neck felt heavier than ever. It seemed to pulse with a life of its own, as if it were aware of what was about to happen. Zara stopped in front of the altar, her eyes fixed on the pedestal. "This is it," she whispered. "Place the necklace here." The protagonist stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached up and unfastened the necklace, his fingers trembling slightly as he held it in his hands. He could feel the power within it, a force that was both familiar and alien at the same time. It was the same necklace he had given Zara all those years ago, but now, it was more than just a token of their bond. It was the key to unlocking the device, the key to saving her people. With a deep breath, he placed the necklace on the pedestal. There was a moment of silence, and then the ground beneath them rumbled. The walls of the temple seemed to tremble, as though the very structure itself was awakening. Light began to glow from within the pedestal, and the necklace seemed to shimmer with an intense otherworldly glow. Zara stepped back, her eyes wide with awe. It's working, it's really working. But before they could celebrate, the rumbling intensified. The temple shook violently, and dust fell from the walls. The protagonist reached out to steady himself, his heart racing. Something wasn't right. The light from the necklace grew brighter, more intense, and a loud screeching noise filled the air. It was as though the entire temple was being torn apart. "Zara, what's happening?" he shouted over the noise. "We have to get out!" Zara cried, grabbing his arm. "The device is activating, but it's unstable. We need to leave now." But it was too late. The floor beneath them cracked open, and the temple began to collapse. The protagonist grabbed Zara's hand, pulling her toward the exit. They ran through the shaking temple, the walls crumbling around them, the light from the necklace blinding and disorienting. As they neared the entrance, the ground gave way beneath their feet. The protagonist lunged forward, just barely catching the edge of the doorway as the temple collapsed behind them. He pulled Zara to safety, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. For a moment, they sat in the rubble, catching their breath. The dust settled, and the light from the necklace began to fade. They had made it out, but they both knew that the device had been activated. There was no going back now. Zara looked at him, her face pale but filled with determination. "We've done it," she said. "We've awakened the device. But now, we have to face what comes next." The protagonist nodded, his heart still racing. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." The dust in the air seemed to hang heavy as the protagonist and Zara sat in the quiet aftermath of the temple's collapse. The ground beneath them was unstable, but they had made it out just in time. The once powerful energy of the necklace had subsided, and the temple with its ancient mysteries was now nothing more than rubble. The glowing light from the pedestal had faded, but its effects were far from gone. Zara was the first to speak, her voice soft but filled with a certain weight. "It's done. The device has been activated." The protagonist looked over at her, still catching his breath. "But what does that mean? The temple? It's gone. The energy from the necklace, it was overwhelming." Zara nodded slowly. Her eyes darkened with a mixture of relief and concern. "We've unlocked something far bigger than we realized. The device was meant to protect my people, to shield us from the chaos of the galaxy. But now that it's been triggered, it's not just a safeguard, it's a beacon." She paused, taking in a breath as if preparing for something even heavier. "It's calling out to others, both friends and enemies." The protagonist felt his heart sink. "Enemies? How many are there? Who's coming after us now?" "We don't know exactly," Zara admitted, standing and brushing the dirt from her hands. "But those who wanted to destroy us will now be able to sense the activation. They will be coming for the power we've just unleashed." Her voice hardened, her expression steely. "We must be ready. My people have a chance now. But so do the ones who wish to take everything from us." The protagonist stood up, dusting himself off, the weight of the situation settling on him like a stone. He had hoped for a peaceful solution, a way to help Zara's world without the violence and conflict that seemed inevitable, but it was clear now that they had only opened the door to more battles. Zara looked at him, her eyes steady. "I know this isn't what you signed up for. You didn't come here to fight in a war. But the truth is, we don't have a choice. We have to defend what we've awakened." He met her gaze, his resolve hardening. "I'm with you. We've come this far together. We'll face whatever comes next." Together. Zara's face softened, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. "Thank you. You've been more than just an ally. You've been the key to everything." The two of them stood for a long moment, staring out at the crumbling temple. It had once been a place of power, now reduced to ruins. But in its place was something far more dangerous, the promise of a new beginning, one that would shape the future of both their worlds. They made their way back to the ship, their steps steady but weighed down by the knowledge of what lay ahead. The protagonist glanced back at the temple one last time before stepping inside the ship. It was clear now that they weren't just leaving behind the temple, but a part of their past. The journey they had begun was not just about saving her people, it was about their own future and what they chose to make of it. As they took off, the stars outside seemed to shimmer with new possibilities. The protagonist sat at the controls beside Zara, the ship now gliding smoothly through space. They were headed back to her home world, the place where the device's true power would be tested. "We've done it," Zara said quietly, her voice tinged with a mix of exhaustion and relief, "but the real challenge is only just beginning." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "We'll get through this," he said, his voice calm but determined. "You're not alone in this anymore. We'll find a way to protect your people." Zara looked over at him, her expression softened with appreciation. "I don't know what I would have done without you," she said. The protagonist smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie he hadn't expected. "We make a good team." The ship soared through the stars, the hum of the engines a reminder of the journey ahead. The unknown stretched out before them, a vast and mysterious universe filled with both danger and opportunity. But for the first time since their journey began, the protagonist felt a sense of clarity. He had no idea what the future would hold, but he knew one thing for certain. He had found something worth fighting for: Zara's world, her people, and the future they could build together. As they approached her home world, the protagonist felt a deep sense of connection to Zara, to the necklace, and to the mission that had brought them together. It was no longer just about saving her people. It was about something bigger, something that transcended worlds and cultures. It was about the power of loyalty, the strength of bonds, and the courage to face the unknown. They were no longer strangers, and the journey ahead would not be one they faced alone. Together they would stand against whatever threats came their way, and in doing so they would shape the fate of not just her people, but their own. And as the stars twinkled outside, the protagonist knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them with hope, determination, and the shared strength of their newfound bond.